December 1939. Finland, the Kala front. The temperature here is -40 degrees. At this temperature, exposed skin dies in minutes. The air you breathe feels like razor blades in your throat. But for the Soviet Red Army, the cold isn't the scariest thing. There is something deadlier in the forest. You can't see it. You can't hear it. Until the moment a bullet pierces your brain. Soviet soldiers gave this terror a name, Belaya Smert, meaning the White Death. They said he was a ghost. They said he was invisible. They said he lived in the trees. Soviet commanders put a massive bounty on his head. They sent counter-sniper teams. They sent entire infantry battalions. They even carpet-bombed the whole forest with artillery. Just to kill one man, a Finnish farmer who stood only 5 feet 3 inches tall. His name was Simo Häyhä. In his hands was an old rifle with no scope. Over the next 100 days, he would use this gun, alone, to harvest 505 lives. This was not a war. This was a hunt that lasted all winter. To understand this slaughter, you must first understand this war. 1939. World War II had just begun. The Soviet giant turned its eyes to its neighbor, Finland. It was a mismatch of epic proportions. David versus Goliath. The Red Army had 1 million soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 3,000 aircraft, and Finland, this small Nordic country, had almost no tanks and only enough ammunition to fight for 2 weeks. Stalin thought this would be an easy military parade. He thought the Finns would surrender like startled birds. He even ordered his soldiers to bring marching bands, ready for a victory parade in Helsinki, but he made a fatal mistake. He chose to attack in winter. And the Finns are children of the winter. When Soviet tanks froze in the deep snow, when Soviet soldiers shivered in their thin brown uniforms, they became perfect. Brown targets. Simo Häyhä was not a professional soldier. Before the war, he was just a simple farmer and hunter. He lived in a small village near the border. His life was simple. Skiing, raising dogs, hunting. The forest was his backyard. He knew the position of every tree. He knew how the wind blew. He knew how the snow piled up. He swept all the trophies at local shooting competitions. It is said he could hit a coin tossed in the air from 150 meters away. When the Soviets invaded, he picked up his own rifle, a Finnish-made M28-30. This gun wasn't advanced. It was an upgraded version of the old Russian Mosinega. Finns nicknamed it Pistikorva, the Spitz. But this gun had one major feature. It had no scope. This is the most legendary part of Simo Häyhä. As the most efficient sniper in the world, he refused to use an optical scope. He only used the primitive iron sights on the barrel. Why? Because on a frozen battlefield, the scope is a deadly liability. First, the glass of a scope reflects sunlight. That tiny glint would expose your position and bring down Soviet artillery. Second, in the extreme cold, the lenses fog it up or even freeze over. Third, and most importantly, when using a scope, the shooter must raise his head higher to align his eye with the lens. This means a larger target area for the enemy. For Simo, even a centimeter of exposure was the difference between life and death. He chose iron sights. This allowed him to press his face tight against the stock, pressing his body low, almost merging with the snow. This wasn't for style. This was for survival. The Soviets called him a ghost because no one ever saw him shoot. Simo invented a unique art of invisibility. He wore a full white camouflage suit. He wrapped his face in layers of white cloth. Before heading out, he would roll in the snow, covering himself in frost. He would spend hours crawling in -40-degree snow to find the perfect ambush spot. Then he began to build a nest. He would pack the snow hard around his body. Why? because loose snow flies up when a gun is fired. The snow dust kicked up by the muzzle blast would reveal his location. Packed snow does not fly. Next, he did something unimaginable. He would grab a handful of freezing snow and stuff it into his mouth, holding it there. This wasn't to quench thirst. This was to mask his breath. In extreme cold, human breath turns into white steam. That cloud of white is like a beacon in the forest. Holding snow lowered his mouth temperature, making his breath transparent. Who's like that? He became a stone. A piece of breathing ice. He could lie motionless for hours, waiting until that unlucky Soviet soldier appeared. The Kala front became a slaughterhouse for the Soviet army. Every morning, Simo would leave with a day's rations, usually just bread and sugar cubes, and return only after dark. His comrades would ask, "How was today?" He would simply state a number, 25. One day, in just a few hours, he confirmed 25 kills. This meant every few minutes, a Soviet family lost a son. Soviet morale collapsed. They started to believe the Finns used witchcraft. Some Soviet officers dared not leave their tents, because if they showed their heads, they died. The commander ordered, "Kill that sniper at all costs." They began blindly firing mortars into the forest, shattering countless trees. But Simo remained alive. Once, a shell landed just meters away from him. It tore his coat apart, but he only suffered minor scratches. He dusted off the snow, moved to a new spot, and continued shooting. The Soviets finally realized only a sniper can kill a sniper. They brought in an ace sniper from Moscow, specifically to hunt Simo. This was a duel of masters, like a scene from a movie. Two men in the vast snowfields, hunting for each other's trace. This cat-and-mouse game lasted all day. The sun was setting. The Soviet sniper made a mistake. Just as the angle of the sunset changed, Simo saw a faint glint, the reflection of a scope. In that instant, Simo knew his opponent's position, but he didn't shoot immediately. He waited until the Soviet sniper peeked out slightly to confirm his target. Bang! One shot, one kill. Simo later checked the body. He found the enemy's rifle scope was shattered. The bullet went through the scope and through the eye. That was the price of using a scope. However, luck eventually runs out. March 6th, 1940. 1 week before the war ended, Simo was spotted during an intense close-quarters battle. A Soviet soldier fired a shot at him. This was no ordinary bullet. It was an exploding bullet. The bullet hit Simo's left cheek and detonated instantly. His jaw was crushed. Half his face was gone. When his comrades rescued him, they thought he was dead. Someone described half his head was missing. He fell into a deep coma and was sent to a rear hospital. The Soviets cheered. They had finally killed the White Death, or so they thought. 1 week later, March 13th, 1940, Finland and the Soviet Union signed a peace treaty. At the exact moment the ceasefire began. In a hospital bed, Simo, he opened his eyes. He came back to life. It was like a joke of fate. He picked up his gun when the war started and woke up when the war ended. He underwent 26 surgeries. His face was permanently disfigured, but he survived. Official statistics confirmed. In less than 100 days, he killed 505 enemy soldiers. This doesn't include the 200 plus he killed with a submachine gun in close combat, totaling possibly over 700. He's the deadliest sniper in human history, a record that remains unbroken to this day. After the war, Simo returned to his farm. He resumed his quiet life, raising dogs, hunting. A reporter asked him a sharp question. "Do you feel guilt for killing so many people?" The old man looked at the snow outside the window with his scarred face. He calmly replied, "I only did my best to do what I was told to do. To the world, he was the White Death. But for Finland, he was the guardian of winter, a seemingly ordinary man who pulled the trigger in the freezing cold to protect his home.